All right, so it would help on your end if everybody mutes, and then when Susan and Buzz they talk, they can unmute, but I'm going to mute you all. All right, so there we go. Share my screen. All right, so just a quick little introduction. I think most of you know this, but this is the 4 days we're going to do this online conference. Tonight, just the welcome and a little bit of a recap for 2020. And then Buzz will jump on to talk about some of the stuff he's doing in Vermont. And then we'll switch to Susan in Canada. And then at the end, we'll just do a very short preview of the nominations for the board and a preview of what will come for the annual meeting next week. So I want to thank the NAFEX board for all the work they've done since I've come on as president. I came on in August of last year, with having only been really in NAFEX for about a year prior to that. And Chuck or Charles and Taylor and Eliza have all been wonderful in terms of helping as officers and kind of getting things rolling again. And then our directors, Barbara, Mark, Rhonda, Steve, Bill Grimes, Larry, and Justin, of which a lot of them are moving off the board this year. So we're going to be doing nominations next week to fill their spots. They've got some big shoes to fill. And then Barbara has volunteered for the membership chair. So assuming we vote her in for that, she'll help that out. And then we'll talk a little bit about the interest groups in a moment. So just a little bit of review since August, since I came on, we've had a couple of things that we've really had to focus on. Our numbers, my understanding, had dropped membership-wise. And so one of the things we were looking at was whether or not the fact that we had stopped printing the Pomona years ago was a part of that. And so there was discussion among the board to bring the printed Pomona back, which we've done, and that has been successful. We also had some website issues, which factored into last year's meeting. We had low attendance from NAFEX members at the joint meeting of NAFEX and NNGA. And it turns out there were some website issues that really factored in. And thanks to Eric and Taylor, they jumped in and really kind of brought that website back up to date. It had kind of fallen for a couple of months and we had a hard time accessing some things, but they really did a phenomenal job. And so I feel like those are two things we've really accomplished in the last year. And I think that's really helped. I can tell you that by bringing back the printed Pomona, our membership has increased. We've added 50 members this year. And in fact, I just got a letter today from a gentleman who is not online, and he's been thrilled to have the printed Pomona. And he indicated that he is under the impression that we lost a lot of Amish members because we had stopped printing the Pomona. And so there's a possibility that we will be bringing a lot of those folks back in with time. And with them and those that we lost because we stopped printing the Pomona, many of the older members, I think we'll be bringing back a lot of knowledge to the group, which I think will be wonderful. Some other areas that we need to work on that we've talked about as a board is increasing our outreach and our diversity, and that's undergoing, and I hope the next year will really kind of bring that to fruition. And we've been assessing our interest group list. I think Eric and I talked about this last year, whether or not that was really a functional group list, if it was still working. And we've never really gotten around to addressing that to any great deal. But in the last couple months, I've had several people step up and say either they're still wanting to be ahead of that group, of a particular interest group, or they want to become an interest group leader. So I think there's going to be some things we'll see coming out of that. So that's kind of a next year focus for us. And then, of course, the 2020 conference. How do we do this during a pandemic? Of course, the in-person was canceled, and this is what we're kind of throwing together. And hopefully this will be something that we can consider doing in the future, in addition to our in-person conferences. So with that, I'm having a hard time, folks. There we go. So I think that's it for my slides. And so I got a few more people to add. All right, so with that, we're going to turn to having Buzz talk a little bit. We're going to do just a little bit of a question and answer and just let him chit chat. As kind of alluded to in the beginning, he's kind of in a more rural situation, so his ability to screen share is not there. But I do have some photos that he has sent. So I'll be putting those up on screen as he talks. And so, Buzz, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay.
All right. And I'm going to go back, let's see, to screen share for a moment. And let's see, hold on. Well, maybe not. So Buzz, I may have to go to your website after all of this.
Okay, we tried.
We tried. So, all right. So I'm just going to start throwing some pictures up here from Buzz. Oh, yeah. All right. So I know, so there's going to be, I'll just kind of scroll through pictures as he goes. But Buzz, why don't you go ahead and just tell us where you're from? I think most people know, but many do not. So, and when you got started into growing fruits and nuts.
So I'm living in Zone 4, Vermont, in central Vermont, and growing my nursery here. I grew up in southeastern Pennsylvania. My father was a landscape architect and had a garden center and nursery. So I've been growing plants for as long as I can remember. Probably 15 years ago, the nut trees reached out and bit me and have been really hanging on to me hard. And I've been having so much fun learning about propagating, especially the nut trees, but all the other fruit trees as well. That's been 15 years. I've been selling plants for 4 years, I think, on my nursery, and during that time I've had 2 jobs, and it's really starting to get out of control as far as time. So I'm hoping that soon I'll just have 1 job, which will be operating my nursery. So can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, you're sounding great.
Good.
So how about just a little bit of overview of what your farm is like, about, how big is the farm and how you're operating it?
Sounds good. So the farm is 45 acres, and it's very rare in Vermont in that it's flat. There's also very few rocks. That's a picture of right outside my kitchen window, pretty much, showing some of the beds. The soil's good rich soil. It's not Primag, which is the best soils from a ratings point of view, but it is what they call statewide, which is pretty good soil. This was a dairy farm, probably a dairy farm from the 1850s, 1840s, 1850s. So it's been in hayfield tillage for all that time. It is quite wet, it's hydric, which is challenging as can be for growing chestnuts, for instance. But it works really well for juglans, walnuts, and persimmons, pawpaws. All those things do very well here. So I figured out how to get chestnuts to thrive here through a few tricks of berming, and I'm actually selecting for, hardy chestnuts that can tolerate somewhat wet feet, which has been a fun project too.
So in terms of fruits, what fruits are you growing?
So we're growing persimmons and pawpaws, apples, pears, peaches, cherries, beach plums. Probably said pears already. What else? I just started growing Javid's almond. Looks like that's going to be hardy here. Sea berry, aronia, blueberry, bush cherry, honeyberry, lots of currants. Currants love it here, so I'm really growing a lot of currants. I think that's it for fruits.
Cool. So it looks like you're doing a lot of close plantings, and that's part of your hardiness selection. Is that right?
That's two part. Well, so the almost everything I'm growing is from seed originally, and if I'm grafting plants, I'm growing the rootstocks. So when you see those plants close together, that's kind of the spacing I use for planting seed to grow plants to be 2 years old. And the plants get moved out of those beds after they're 2 years old, typically. And at that point, they've grown, quite tall, taller than they would be if they were spread out. They tend to bush out more if you give them more room. If you push them real close together, like that picture right there. If you push them close together, they tend to grow taller, not so wide, don't branch as much. And despite what you might think, it's very easy to tease those root systems apart. So you can get an awful lot of production out of a very small space. And the other big plus about that, so I follow the organic practices. I'm not certified organic, but I follow organic practices. So all these beds are weeded by hand. So the quicker those beds form a dense canopy like that, the less weeding there is to do until I have to move them to their next location.
So I'm curious, so how deep do the roots go? I mean, do you have I know you said it's easy to tease them apart, but do you have a hard time? I mean, do they really go deep? Do you have a hard time getting the deeper roots out?
Well, I have a mini excavator.
Okay.
A small backhoe-like machine, which really makes a big difference in the deep-rooted stuff. Hickories are the worst by far, and hickories and pecans, of course, have the worst tap roots. Most everything else seems to, in a bed like that, with a really well-prepared bed, with rich soils and plenty of room, the roots tend to get much wider and fatter than they do tap roots on almost everything else. With the exception of hickory and pecan. And so removing the plants, because I plant them in blocks, I move them block at a time. I keep track of the provenance. You see these stakes in my beds, that's the origin of all the seed. So they kind of move them out in blocks and then sort through them, figure out which ones are going to be part of my trials. I'm going to keep on growing, which ones will be sold, which ones will be grafted to. And I probably discard about 50% of the seedlings that I grow on average.
That's amazing. So the seed, I just from watching you on Facebook, it sounds like you're getting seed from all over the place. Is that correct?
Yes, I get seed from all over the place. It's the most fun part of the job I have. Starting in September, I go on the road in a normal year, and I cycle down to Connecticut, pick up the early chestnuts, and then I head to Pennsylvania, and I go all over Pennsylvania. Oh, I hit New Jersey. There's a couple arboretums there, and then I might go down into Maryland. I'll go as far west. This year I went to Buffalo and Ithaca, and been as far out. I've been to Indiana. I've been to Cliff England's a couple times. So I try to get there when their seed are falling and I can gather fruit and get seed. It's a total obsession for me, and I meticulously keep all of them labeled as where they came from. Because if I get real successful plants in these cold hardiness trials, I want to know the origin of the seed. So it's a tremendous amount of work to keep them organized. but I just love it. I love getting this. I love gathering and organizing seed and watching it grow.
Wow. So where did you get the inspiration to grow those seeds so close to each other? So I know that was a big discussion on Facebook. Somebody had seen your planting of nuts that close together. And so I guess there's two questions. Where did you get the inspiration to do that? And then how do you keep the rodents out?
Those are great questions. So there's two places I've learned how to do this. If you go to like the state nurseries and see how they are growing conifers and stuff, they grow them just like this, very tight spacing, close together, with the idea they're digging them out in 1 year or two. But they're all pesticide, herbicide based. So they're knocking down weeds with chemicals, and they're not doing any hand weeding. I was very fortunate to have a mentor from when I was like 18 to probably 20, probably till 30, a man named Gerhard Hansen, who was a German grower. And he grew exactly like he also followed organic practices. And I watched him, he grew all his own rootstocks. He was a big time grafter of conifers. So I saw how he grew his, both his beds and then his row crops. I follow his row crop protocols too when I put things out in nursery rows. So that's where I got that inspiration to grow these plants, and to have as least amount of weeding as possible is the goal of growing them like that.
Great. So you're doing lots of different trials, it sounds like. Do you want to talk a little bit about the persimmon work that you're doing?
So I started out really hard with chestnuts because they also have this reputation of not being able to grow very well in zone 4, and I debunked that pretty quick for myself. That's not has proven to not be that big of a deal. Pawpaws are the same. The hardest part with pawpaws are getting pawpaws started, because they have that long time before they emerge. There seem to be totally hardy here, almost all of them in zone 4. The problem in zone 4 is season length. So only the earliest of pawpaws will make a reasonable fruit crop. That was pretty easy to figure out too. Persimmons are a whole different animal. They have been, it's my favorite fruit in the whole world, fruit of the gods or goddesses. And I love them. So for me to find a way to get persimmons that are hardy here and grow in zone 4 would be a really popular, or really important thing to do. Now, Elwin Meader did that years ago when the Meader persimmon, which many of you probably are familiar with, that was one planting of seed from the variety called Garretson that Meader made, one planting, and he selected from that what he called New Hampshire, I think called New Hampshire 1, now we call it Meader. So that persimmon is the hardiest that is known or is around in horticulture. I have about 7,000 persimmon seedlings in the ground now, and I'll have well over 10,000, probably 12,000 at the end of this season. Of the first 1,000, which came from John Hershey, the seed came from John Hershey and Donald Compton and John Gordon's nursery. Of that first 1,000, I have 11 plants that have proven to be remarkably hardier than the other 989. And so those 11 are being revered and planted out for review for me. And I'm hoping if I plant 10,000, I'll have about 100 hardy persimmons that show virtually no burn at all, which would be amazing. And of that, hopefully I'll have half of them will be female. So I'll have 50 plants, and then we'll see if some of them don't make really beautiful and delicious fruit. So
that's amazing. So obviously, I know you have a job, a full-time job, but you obviously have help, right?
I have part-time help. I have 2 teenage children that I'm lucky to have that work pretty hard. And I have 2 people that work part-time from when the end of April till like 2 weeks ago. So I have almost the full-time equivalency for half the year probably. But it's still way too much work. I'm hoping, crossing my fingers, knocking on wood, I'm hoping that next year I get to stay home from my day job and work on the farm here. That's my goal. I may be a little ambitious. I may have to wait another 2 years, but it's close. And because of the people that are here are all supporting me and buying plants, I'm able to say, oh, look, you know, I might be able to pull this off. Plus, you know, I'm 64, so I'm almost on retirement. Get to retire to a big project. Sounds like a great way to go.
Sounds like the perfect retirement for me.
Oh, you have some other photos there. You did get a few.
Yeah, these are all from your website,
Oh, they
actually.
are? Okay.
Going
Yeah.
through. This is hickory, right?
This is,
Yep.
that's shell bark probably.
Yeah.
It's another funny thing is, like, you know, the hickories are all hardy here as well. Virtually all of them, including some of you might be familiar with nutmeg hickory. It's like remnant populations grow in Texas and in northern Mexico. It's totally hardy here. I don't know that it'll ever fruit. So all the hickories seem to be hardy here. They just may not ripen fruit, which is likely. So
Yeah, I would imagine with your late frosts, that
well,
would be.
back to persimmons for a second. I have pretty much determined that persimmons are totally hardy to 25 below zero. That's not what hurts them. What hurts them, I have had tried to get you pictures of this, is when it's 17 degrees on September 15th or 18th.
Uh-huh.
Before the end of September, we go down to, you know, 15 degrees. It just totally fries all of the leaves are still green. Persimmons still think they're in season growing. So they're totally green. And we get these killer frosts here. Freeze is not a frost. And it just takes the plant back to wherever, you know, it loses a whole season of growth or more. And they just burn halfway. They burn in halfway. So my 3-year-old persimmons are, generally speaking, 4 to 5 feet tall because they grow so rapidly. But they've been burnt back. You know, the first year they grow a foot, burn back to 6 inches. Second year they grow 2 feet, burn back to 1 foot. You know, it just, they take a hell of a beating and look terrible in spring. So they'll never fruit. But the ones that are hardy, if I can find a few that are hardy, I'll be so excited.
Yeah. Yeah, at least around here, so in Indiana, we had 2 hard frosts this spring, which everyone was saying, oh, it's going to kill off the persimmon. We're not going to have any persimmon. And sure, the fruit was less, but my wild ones, I mean, I still got quite a bit of fruit. I have a tree that has been through fire and through freezing and still produces, which is amazing. But they seem to be able to get through a lot.
Well, I was blessed last year to get a bunch from, well, actually, Jerry sent me seed when he was alive.
Uh-huh.
And then last year we collected seed at his orchard at the, you know, the meeting we had there.
Uh-huh.
I got some seed from that. And then this year I got seed from Claypool's orchard from Donald Compton, collected some stuff there and got me seed from there. So I look forward to planting all those this coming up spring. And then of course I was at John Gordon's. Now John Gordon's is a whole nother crazy person who was trying to push the hardiness like I am, but he was only zone 5. I'm bumping up a whole nother zone. So it's a shame I never got to meet that person.
Yeah. Yeah. So any other cool projects you've got going on besides your chicken shack?
Well, that chicken shack is for a customer. I have almost 500 birds here that we feed primarily on food scraps that get collected and dropped off here.
Uh-huh.
So that's a fun project. That never stops. I will probably put up. I have another greenhouse that I bought that I'm going to put up next year. It's going to be my persimmon greenhouse, and it's going to be my breeding greenhouse. So those persimmons, because they're in a greenhouse, it moves me from zone 4 to like zone 6, like Indiana.
Uh-huh.
So I think those persimmons will all do very well, and that'll all be filled with grafts that I'll be then generating my own seed from. I probably put out 150 grafted persimmons this year, 2-year-old grafts, just to see if any of them would survive. Because here in zone 4, you pretty much can't put out any graft in the first year except for apple, pear, plum, and cherry. Everything else will die. The first year, the cold for the first year just blows the graft apart and they're all dead. So if we put them in the root cellar, which is what I do, I put them in the root cellar for 1 winter, and then they grow a second season in pots, and I plant them in the fall. Those trees are, generally speaking, 50 to 80% survival, which took me a few years to figure that out too. I lost an awful lot of grafts going through that, figuring that process out.
Yeah, that's a lot of grafting.
Yeah, Those are persimmon grafts right there. Every one of those with the pink tags is a persimmon. That's from this year. That's about half the ones I did this year.
What's your preferred type of graft?
Well, I'm really switching hard to chip budding. I still do a lot of whip and tongue because I'm so fast at it. And chip budding seems to be, it's so much easier to do. So I'm switching hard to chip bud. So probably those there are probably half of them are whip and tongue, a quarter of them are chip bud, and the rest are random. Could be a bark graft of some kind, something like that. Depends on the wood, depends on the stocks. Those are persimmons that are 1 year old right there. That's 1 year old persimmon from seed. That's 3,000 plus persimmons in those bed and a half. And then
Wow.
the bed looks real lightly up to the left. That is pawpaw. Same age as the persimmon, 1 year old, end of the first season.
Oh, right up in here.
That's pawpaw.
Okay.
Yep. And they take so much weeding. They stay so small for so long. They stay hardy. They grow. And of course, that's full sun. That's this whole thing. Pawpaws grow in full sun, and they grow full sun here. But I'm zone 4. It's not like it never gets to 100 here. This year was 90 a lot, but we never hit 100. Not as hot as a lot of you folks.
Yeah. So I had always heard, and maybe there's others who can comment on this, but it's actually the sun, the UV that kind of stunts them. And so around here, everyone will kind of keep them covered or shaded for the first couple of years to get them going, and then they'll let them have full sun.
Yeah, I'm not doing that here. They're full sun from day one, moment one.
Okay.
And that seems fine here. Yeah, it's different here. It's a different place.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yep.
So let's see. I'm gonna actually stop screen share. Got another one come in. So those of you familiar with Zoom, there is the chat feature, and there's some people asking some questions, so I'm going to ask. Taylor Yell from Mississippi, he asks, Buzz, what has been your experience with growing the blue-colored American persimmon?
So the only one that I know of, there's one I've seen people growing in Europe. I forget the name of it. It's very blue. The only one I'm growing is one that's growing at John Hershey's planting in Pennsylvania. It's a fairly large persimmon. It's very late. It's like end of October, way into November before it's ripe. The ones that get, generally speaking, it's quite yellow as a persimmon if they're growing in the shade. The ones that are out in full sun turn blue and then almost black and purple. They are not a pretty persimmon at all. As you scroll through my webpage, there was some of those blue ones there, but they're mixed in with yellow. That one has a really strange seed too. It's a very odd persimmon, seed shape of the persimmon. It's quite watery. It's a very tall and upright plant, but it has a lot of fruit. So I think it would do better south. I'm growing it here because it's cool. And we'll see if any of them can come near to surviving. I planted a bunch of them out this year as well. It's very vigorous. It's a 90 chromosome. So it grows rapidly. And, it tastes okay, but it's watery. Donald Compton would dismiss it. Heartbeat, right? Nah, no good.
All right, somebody else asks, see, Michael Thompson wants to know, where does your persimmon stock come from?
So most of you probably know this already, but persimmons are, there's kind of a southern subspecies and a northern subspecies, or I don't even know if it's a subspecies, but there's 60 and 90 chromosome persimmon. So the persimmons that I'm chasing are pretty much the 90 chromosome. The 60 ones are the wild ones in the woods in Indiana and down south, Virginia and so forth. The 90 chromosome are further north. They say, the other side of the Ohio River is one of the things Cliff says about them. They have a much larger leaf and much, generally speaking, larger fruit. I'm blessed to have, growers like Jim Claypool, Jerry Lehman, Donald Compton, Cliff England, John Hershey, Russell Smith, other growers in Virginia. These people have all been ferreting out persimmons for over, 100 and what, 100, 150 years, longer probably. Finding the bigger ones and collecting them and having them, they're already grafted on all these places that I go visit. John Gordon, and some of these people, John Gordon, Jerry Lehman, Claypool, they were all breeding the best of the persimmons, looking for that better. Donald Compton, he's a genius for breeding persimmon. His plants are spectacular. His fruits are fantastic. Total sleepers as far as I'm concerned, as being wow. So I just gather from all of those people. I go to their nurseries, deceased and alive, as best I can. And anyone who's alive, I pick their brain, like, why this, why that, where'd that come from? What's the breeding? What are you doing? Where are you heading with your breeding? And that's where I get the germplasm for my persimmons. And then, of course, there's the wild ones. Like someone just posted an incredible persimmon that's growing in upstate Pennsylvania. Well, in a park there. Just who knows where it came from? Gorgeous, long, oval, bigger than Geneva red, Geneva long. I mean, nice color. Anyway, so there's plenty of places to get the superior genetics from, both seed and scion wood.
Cool. So Eric just posted a comment. He said, if you get hardy to zone 4, then they will have a heck of a range. And he's growing persimmon down in Florida, and where it's too warm for pawpaws. So
right.
That's pretty cool. And then Susan, she said she would love to know how Buzz does with the beach plums, and also what are his favorite arboretums to visit, and in particular ones with fruit tastes. Or wait a minute, hold on.
The fruit as well. I can read that one. Yeah. So I'm lucky in that there's some really good selections of beach plum. What's his name? Ashworth in it's a northern New York nursery. It's in the third owner now. It was Bill. My brain's going. Anyway, so Ashworth selected some delicious beach plums. So the ones that are on my website that are pictured, they are sweet and delicious. You can eat those out of hand, and they make delicious jam. They're very easy to process. The seed is large, but there's still quite a bit of pulp. So they're very easy to pulp out and eat. Of course, they grow like crazy where I live in zone 4. They love it in zone 4, and they grow all the way down, I think, to zone 8. So it's a good vigorous plant here. Grows well from seed. I don't know if I've made cuttings of that one yet or not. I don't know that I have. I think it's all been from seed, or I think I've grafted 1 or 2 of them. And they seem to come fairly true from seeds from the ones I'm growing. The Ashworth ones, which are my preferred ones, seem to grow pretty well from seed, as similar to their parents. There's also a planting of beach plum at Dr. Sandy's at CA Connecticut Ag Experimental Station, where there's a delicious pink one and a really delicious purple one. So I have seed from that growing as well. It's also a big favorite with critters, all the critters, the birds and the squirrels and so forth. It's a great plant for wildlife, beach plum. They just love them. And they're the ones that bear, I mean, there's just so many that come on a good year, huge volume. So can I roll down these questions?
Yep, go for it.
So pecans, I have no idea which pecans are going to actually bear here. I'm hoping that, of course, the ultra northern, which Ernie Grimo and John Gordon and Doug Campbell went and found and have been growing, and Ernie's been doing all that work since those guys have passed on too. I believe the ultra northern pecan will do fine here. So not that much colder, and the season's almost as long. I'm hoping that heat cans, smaller heat cans, Abbott, and the bit cans, Abbott, please. There's another one, Henke, Cobble Sweetie. I'm hoping that the smaller heat cans and bit cans will also bear here. I'm growing them all, both grafts and from seed, to see if any of them. Thank you, Taylor. Fred Ashworth and Bill McKinley. What's the name of that nursery, Taylor? Help me out, dude.
St. Lawrence.
St. Lawrence Nursery. Yes, thank you, folks. So St. Lawrence Nursery, that's 3 different, we're on a 3rd grower now there who are all focused on northern plants so it's a long time. And Ashworth was a very, very keen grower. A lot of his plants are very good. So he has some exceptional hazelnuts too. the crosses from him are very good. So
Are they American hazels or are they hybrids?
they're hybrids.
Yeah.
Yep. They're hybrids. And there's been a lot of people that have been selecting and growing those on from seed. And I have some very nice, one or two really, really good, large, very large nutted plants, and one that's just so productive from them. So that's a really good one. That's another thing I'm glad about. I'll definitely have chestnuts grow. I've already had chestnuts fruiting here. Black walnuts fruit here. Heart nuts are going to fruit here. I'm 99% sure. Hazelnuts do very well here, so I'll get those nuts for sure. As far as all the hickories and the pecans, that is an open question that I hope I live long enough to be able to answer thoroughly. We'll see.
Very cool.
That's the beautiful thing about persimmons. They fruit pretty quickly. Same
Yep.
thing with chestnuts. 5, 6 years, 7 years from seed. Even chestnuts I have chestnuts that are 5 years old from seed that fruit pretty well this year.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it is. It's so exciting to have your own fruit. When you're planting all this stuff, and everyone tells you can't get chestnuts to grow there. It's too cold. So that's cool.
All right. So as we wrap up with Buzz, if there's any last minute question, go ahead and type it in. Buzz, is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to mention?
Well, I'm going to just take a minute and say that my website, because someone's asking, what am I selling? My website is perfectcircle.farm. And due to COVID and the interest in plants and, me having a day job, I have a lot of stuff I'm sold out of already. It's crazy. There'll be more stuff going on in spring. But once again, I want to thank all you people for supporting me. It's been such a, can I do this? Can I start a nursery and make it go? Make it a retirement business? And I think it's gonna work out okay. So perfectcircle.farm, Taylor Yao, you'll be able to see what I have. Or not Taylor Yao, someone else there. Oh, Michael Thompson. Yes, there's a lot of interest in American persimmon. There are persimmon groups, 2 persimmon groups on Facebook with all kinds of people in Europe that are very interested in American persimmon. After you graft, do you grow all the plants out in pots? I try to plant everything in the ground as soon as I can. I have to grow grafts for 2 years. 1 year, graft them the first year and grow them, put them in the root cellar so they'll survive. They're in pots, they either get planted out in the spring or the fall the following year.
Okay, cool.
Cool.
All right. Well, if you guys think of any other questions for Buzz, feel free to email them or contact him, and I'm sure he'll be happy to answer them for you. And we're going to switch gears now to Susan in Canada.
Thank you all again.
We'll clap. I'll clap for everybody. All right. So Susan, do you have your
very interesting.
Yep. Susan, you have slides you're going to share?
Yeah, I can share my screen. Let's see how that works. Not slides per se, but I was going to show you guys. Let's see if this works. Oh, this may be hard for me. Hang on. I'm going to unshare and I'm going to share on the screen in front of me. So can you hear me okay, by the way?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, so let's try that screen share again. And I think this is going to work now. Boom. Okay, can you see my Ben Nobleman community orchard? And here everybody is. Yes.
So why don't you tell us about where you're from and when you started growing fruits?
Sure. Okay. I am from Toronto, Canada, and I started growing fruit trees probably 12 years ago, and actually probably a little earlier than that. I was not initially even a gardener. My husband, who's originally from Trinidad, when he moved into this house, he was like, wow, this garden, what could we do with that? And I'm like, nothing. We're not going to do anything with this garden, because I could just imagine a project starting and then just causing a mess. And then over the years, I just got the bug. I became an organic gardener. I started to work for the city of Toronto as a gardener. And I just started to get really passionate about trees and about fruit trees. So in 2009, I worked with some other members in my community to start a community orchard in my local park. Because in our garden, it's not big enough to have as many fruit trees as I'd like to be playing with. So we did it. We planted the trees, we started the project. There was controversy around it. There were people in this very privileged community that I live in, that thought the fruit trees were going to be messy. It was going to be a disaster. It would attract, oh, God knows, roadkill, rapes and murders. These fruit trees were going to cause so many problems. Like literally, this was kind of really extreme response. But what I learned from it, it was actually a blessing. And it just meant that when I got permission to plant this orchard, I knew I had to do it properly. I knew I had to learn what I was doing because it could not be a failure. It had to be a success. And I think everybody in this group knows that fruit trees can be a little high maintenance, and they're not so easy necessarily as popping them in the ground and just waiting for the fruit. So yeah, it's been an incredible journey for, 10 plus years.
So talk about, after after you got this started, where have you kind of gone from here?
So what happened with me was, again, I had this learning journey to do. My background is that I'm a journalist and a filmmaker and a radio producer. And so I kind of mixed everything together and researched and interviewed experts and traveled all over the North America to meet people who were doing community orchards to say, hey, how are you doing this? And how are you making it work? Because this is challenging. And in the end, I wrote a book on fruit tree care. Today, I have this website here that I will show you guys. This is orchardpeople.com. It's where I have tons of resources on everything related to fruit trees. And so I have radio shows that are all about, and you guys know about them probably because I put them in the Facebook group. But I have radio shows and podcasts on everything that I'm curious about that relates to fruit trees. I get to speak to all these amazing experts from around the world. I get a question, I'm like, I find an expert, I can interview them on the radio, ask them a million questions. The listeners to my show can also ask questions because it goes out live, and I get access to these amazing people. So, yeah, so it's turned into this website, this podcast, and also over the years, I've created courses for people like me who are beginners, and who need to learn and don't want to mess it up and don't want to waste a lot of time. And so I've created these courses using all my filmmaking skills and stuff to teach people. So it's been fun. I have students from across, well, North America and beyond. I have students in India and Germany and Amsterdam and all over the place. And these are all special, amazing people, just like NAFEX, like amazing, passionate people. So, and in the meantime, this community orchard has grown from me and another lady and a few other older ladies to now, thank God, we're starting because of COVID. We now have some teenagers and younger people involved too. Just a little orchard, and it's been wonderful in this community. So, yeah.
So one of the questions that when I spoke last year at NAFEX about, the importance of, preserving, heritage varieties and growing more in our communities. I had several people come up to me and say, I would love to start a community orchard. How do I start? Where do I even begin? And
Mhm.
so perhaps talk a little bit about, Canada, obviously a little bit different than North America, and every place has its own governance that's going to be different. But, did you have a group of people that were interested from the get-go, or was it just you alone? And how did you approach your community?
I think what happened was it was me with a passion and a neighbor who was a gardener who was willing to go for it. You have to have committed people. This is not like planting a veggie garden in the community that if it doesn't work out, then you pull out the zucchinis and it's all fine. You have to have a Susan who will go thick and thin, make this happen no matter what. Um, when we had so many challenges, a community that was against it. So here in this communityorchard.ca website, there is a tab called Orchards 101, where I answered all the questions that were in my community about, well, what is a community orchard? How will it work? How do I start one? I put together all these resources. So that is one resource for people who are interested. Also, in orchardpeople.com, let's go back here. If you go to community, whoops, orchard, I have interviewed and profiled some of the top community orchard projects in North America. Many of them I visited personally. And each one has a different way of governance, a different way of organizing themselves. Doesn't matter if it's in Canada, the United States, Germany, wherever. Each one has its strength and weakness or whatever. So I would suggest doing the research, and I've done so much of it for you, for everybody, because I was on this journey and I'm a writer and I just write. Um, and the last thing is that my book, which I will show you guys here, so at orchardpeople.com/book, it's a fruit tree care book. And I think it's a good one for people to read because the problem is people are, I don't know if you guys encounter this, people are really naive and they do think that you can, what a great idea. I'll have a community orchard, I'll plant the trees and I'll just leave them and everything will be fine and we'll get a great harvest in our community. So my book tells about our naivete in going into this project, but what we learned along the way. How did we learn to take care of the trees? But it's also about our community orchard experience. So anybody who's starting a community orchard should get the book or get it out of the library and just read it and say, do I still want to do this? I hope they do. But if they don't, I'm okay with that because I would rather have people not plant a community orchard than plant one and it be a disaster and it be neglected and those trees infect the rest of our trees with all the pest and disease problems that we don't want.
Very good point. So for those who are listening, if you guys start to have some questions, go ahead and pop those into the chat. So remind me again, you may have said this and I may have not been listening close enough. What fruits are you growing?
I didn't say, and so you were listening very closely. We have apples, we have apples, Asian pears, apricots, cherries, service berries, plums. We do not have European pears because in our community, I don't know if this is, it's like I think in a lot of urban communities, there was a trend for a while to plant ornamental pear trees, not for fruit. And rust ripped through, fire blight ripped through. And so any European pear tree you plant around here, you know that you're going to be fighting rust. And fire blight we had this past summer as well, but rust is a super big problem here, so we don't have those.
Okay. So is the orchard now pretty much running on its own with the volunteers, or is there still a lot of oversight?
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. So I think a trinity is a good thing. So we have me and I take care of the fruit trees. I make sure those trees are being taken care of. We have a lady, I hope she will still do it, but she may be retiring soon. That's Sherry in this picture. She took care of our pollinator garden, or insectary garden, which I think is key in any orchard planting. You must have it. Community orchard. So Sherry looks after, makes sure everything is done in the pollinator garden. And then we have a third person who does admin, sends the emails to the volunteers. You need that committed group. And then from there, you can move forward. Because of COVID and people having nothing to do, suddenly we have more volunteers. We have younger volunteers and they love it. These kids come out to the orchard, spend 2 hours working, and then they come up to me and they say, thank you. They say thank you to me They've been like weeding and mulching and work, and they say thank you to me, and they love it and they're committed. I have a young mother as well who's joined us. I mean, age is tricky because anybody with really little kids, they can't really get involved. So, the one mother, her kids are like, preteen and teen. But there's hope because most of us were older in the group, 50 plus. And so I was a little concerned what's going to happen to the orchard because some of the older ladies were having illnesses, and I'm like, oh God, what's going to happen? But it's interesting. It's quite beautiful right now.
Cool.
I also wanted to mention, you guys, I know you guys really want to work on diversity in NAFEX and people from different cultures. And we've had that too. But we live in a city. We are so fortunate to have some interesting people from different parts of the community who come to participate, but we too need to work on the diversity because you have to have some leisure time to come and volunteer and spend time in the orchard. So I think for me, that's also a priority as well, to make sure there's folks from all sorts of backgrounds.
Yep, that's all right. So I don't think we have any specific questions. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I wanted to say how much I love the NAFEX Facebook page, and for all of you guys that participate and answer questions. And I just wanted to say that I was saying to Chris that a lot of the students that graduate all 3 of my courses, I would really like to introduce them to NAFEX. What I'm concerned about is I don't want to bring the beginners in because I don't want you guys to be fending off very dumb questions, not dumb, there is no dumb questions, but very, very beginner questions to sort of like, I'd love to know what people's viewpoint is. Are you like, let everybody come to us, it's okay? Or would you rather people who've had some training and some experience to come and join the Facebook group? Because my concern is that people will just get a little lazy and every problem they have, what is this orange spot on my leaf? That might be annoying. I don't know. So that's my last word is a question for you guys.
So perhaps any of the board members want to chime in on that? I'll give them a chance to unmute.
So what is the question again?
My question is how you feel. I want to start introducing the students who have graduated from my courses to NAFEX. I want them to get involved. I'd love them to be on the board and do stuff like that. And I think that for the graduates of my courses, I think it's great. But I'm concerned about sending people over to NAFEX before they have any training. My worry is that people will join and then they'll ask very basic questions that will kind of lower the level of conversation in NAFEX. And I just wanted to know if you guys feel that, it's okay, the more the merrier, just send them all over. Or if you feel NAFEX needs to be a group of people with like a minimum amount of training and experience.
No, we'll accommodate everybody. We're happy to have them.
That's really nice.
We want them young and to train them. We desperately need younger people. It doesn't matter if they have much knowledge or skills at all. We desperately need the young people. We'll do what it takes to get them.
Yeah, I can start sending them over.
So Eric says in the chat, he says, some people on the Facebook groups do get annoyed at the same basic questions repeated, but he thinks it's important to get people involved early. And I would agree with him.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and Sandy asks, Sandy, great question. She asked, who gets to pick the fruit that's grown in the community orchard? What a great question. So there's the theory and there's the practice. Theoretically, everybody should be waiting for a harvest day. The volunteers harvest and we invite the community to harvest with us and we share it around. We make sure the volunteers get something because we put in a lot of work. And that seems to work with the cherry harvest, maybe with the apricot harvest. By the time our apple trees are ripe, all the fruit is gone, because it's a park and people come with their children to the park and they're like, oh, little Billy, this is an apple tree. Here's where we pick apples and eat them. But they're harvesting ripe apples. And by the time the fruit should be ripe, there is no fruit. It's all gone. We've also had people come and rip off, like we'll have a harvest day on Wednesday, and on Tuesday, somebody overnight just harvests an entire cherry tree, and somebody sees them sneak off with bags and bags of cherries. So I always say that we're doing this project as a community building project, as an educational project, and the fruit is just a bonus, because we can't guarantee we're going to have it, because other people can get there first.
Good point. Let's see. So Larry says we absolutely must accommodate young and inexperienced members. All are welcome. I agree.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you, Susan, for telling us about the community orchard and the work that you're doing. And at this point, I just want to kind of give a little preview about next week in our annual meeting and give Barbara a chance to talk about nominations. So as I mentioned at the beginning, for those of you who didn't catch the very beginning, every year we have an annual meeting, and normally this would have been in the summertime or in August, and we would have a formal meeting in conjunction with our in-person conference. And we would vote on our board members. So we always have outgoing board and need to replenish them. So this year, since we have not had the in-person conference, and we've pushed those votes off, that nomination and votes off until now, Barbara has done a fabulous job with the help of Bill Grimes and the rest of the board to kind of come up and find people who would be willing to step up to help fill the shoes of the 4 board members who are rotating off. And so Barbara, would you like to talk just a little bit about that?
Sure. If you'd like, I can just go down through the nominations.
Sure.
Okay. In the nominating committee report, I was chair this year, and there were I found 3 or 4 people, I think 4, to be board members or to be candidates for board members, and I really like these people because they're from all over the country. Jorge Zalda's from Miami, Florida. He's in education. I can tell by his email address. Leslie Wade is from Georgia. Chris Homanix is from Oregon. And the person that showed up at the end here, let's see.
Yeah.
I had one after Chris.
I think Tim Lucier, Barb. That's me.
Oh yeah, Tim Lucier. I'm looking at the wrong report.
From Oregon.
Yeah, from Oregon. He's a really, really good guy, and I believe he's young and he is very enthusiastic. Oregon Trail Family Farm. So the farm has been there for over 200 years, which is pretty awe-inspiring. And I believe it's very beneficial for NAFEX to get involved with the Home Orchard Society, which is now called the Home Orchard Education Center, because of the work they're doing, just like many of the other projects that we've shared and gotten involved with and had people on the board involved with. Also, that's the board members. I put myself in for membership chairperson. However, I would be happy if somebody else would like to take this on. It's I'm sorry for my voice. I had surgery recently and I'm still a little bit hoarse. But I think the membership of NAFEX is a critical area that needs focus. I'm going to insist to the board that I have help. You know, somebody has got to stand around, because what if I fall over and go back in the hospital or something worse? I want somebody to at least know what's going on, because we really do need to get a little more transparency and communication with our membership. I'm willing for suggestions and happy to help in that regard. But if somebody thinks that they've got the answer, boy, oh boy, you're welcome to be nominated from the floor. There's something called floor nominations during the annual meeting. We have these board members that I found. Maybe there's somebody else out there. Feel free to post them and to bring them forward so that they can be recognized within the organization. All you have to do is be a member, and as everyone knows here on the call, it doesn't take a whole lot to be a member of NAFEX.
Great.
That's about all I had to say. Did you want me to talk about anything else?
There's nothing specific that comes to mind unless there's something you have.
No, I guess I could talk about each person, but I think people could read the report as well as I could talk about it.
Yeah, several of them are on here. So perhaps why don't we, I don't know if all four are here or just three, but
well, I'm hoping that I put him down in the top of the thing, but I'm not sure he's in the bottom of it. And I've done a little bit. No, he's there.
Yeah,
I may have sent you the wrong report.
So Tim, do you just want to say a quick hi to everybody?
I love
Yeah,
Tim.
hi everyone. Yeah, hey guys, thank you. Tim Lucier, my French Canadian ancestors, is what I wrote in the biography, have been in Oregon for 200 years. Etienne Lucier was the first Western farmer in Oregon, so I only put that in my biography. This is Farley, my cockatoo, but only to honor, you know, the heritage that's, you know, some people, we call ourselves Native, which comes off very egotistical, but I try to honor the heritage that we didn't choose ourselves, and obviously honor the land and the people that were here in Oregon long before any of us were here. So we have a small family farm, and I grow nursery stock, and because of the Home Orchard Society, where I went to community college at Clackamas, I've been inspired by the community, like folks like you, of saving old apple orchards, like the Timmy Appleseed project I started. I actually went to Hawaii for college, and I got a master's in communication. So the mission of this organization, I amateur about, and, you know, trying to just learn and grow and spread the good nature of saving these old orchards, of planting sometimes native plants in Oregon. So I look forward to meeting the other board candidates and the current board, and seeing how I can serve our educational institutes, our amateur growers, and to honor our land for future generations. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Leslie, do you want to jump on real quick?
Sure. Hi there.
Hi.
I'm Leslie Wade. My husband, Ed Campbell, is here with me. We are at the foot of the Blue Ridge Mountains in North Georgia. And we are growing, we have a young orchard of, it's a family orchard of mostly heirloom apples, about 45 trees, and then many other fruit varieties as well. And happy to see some of the folks like Larry Stevenson, who I adore, who has been an inspiration in Southern fruit growing, although we've learned we're effectively in a little pocket of 6B here in the North.
Yeah.
So I'm less involved or less in common with Larry in terms of our growing environment, but nonetheless, it's been a tremendous resource. And I've been a fan of NAFEX and a fangirl for a long time, connecting on social, and then finally realized that I should be a dues paying member because the organization is incredible, and the Pomona is incredible, and the effort that y'all have gone through to get that online and available and searchable is Herculean and an incredible resource. So we're amateur foragers, super excited about what everyone is doing to promote preservation and also promote exploration in different, fruit species, for example. And we're growing one of Buzz's Cabot Russet apples down here in Georgia to see how it does outside of his northern clime. So, and it's the funkiest tree in our orchard because it has its own unique personality and wants to be a four-headed tree. So, and my background just briefly is in communications. I just retired recently from a career in communications and public relations. And so if I can help in any way in that regard, I'm happy to do it too. And as I said in the chat, I'd be happy to help with membership. If someone wants to kind of co-chair some of those activities with me, or we want to get a little subcommittee going, I think that would be great. And I'd be happy to be a part of that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Leslie. And let's see, I'm going to probably not pronounce your name right. Jor?
What about, is Chris Harmonix on the line?
I haven't seen, I don't see him by name.
Too bad, but.
And then we have.
And what about, and Jorge, see, he's going to be speaking, so we can wait on him.
Well, we can say hi real quick.
Okay. Jorge, you around?
Hey there, good evening. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Well, I'm over here in the southern tip of the U.S. down in the Miami Redland area. Redland is the agriculture area here in Homestead. We're 10B. So I'm operating a small guava farm, and that's my main specialty crop. It's a Psidium guajava. Various heirloom cultivars that I'm working on some of the taxonomic lineage of it, because guava is a bit of a conundrum. It's very overlooked. I'm happy to help with membership, and I have some thoughts on. I think I read the comment about the information that we're inputting from members. I could definitely suggest some ideas on collecting that, and I'm excited to just explore some of the things that I see going on around where I'm at. We're growing a lot of tropical fruits. A lot of zone bending, trying to get a lot of those tropicals like the Artocarpus and a lot of this genera that is new to me as well. So I'm an excited person. I did radio as a background, and I'm just excited like everyone else here. I feel very comfortable hearing all the excitement and all the support that you all share with each other to grow this membership. And for me to learn about all these fruits that I'm not growing down here, this is the most exciting part of what I've seen so far this evening, and what I've read in Pomona, is that I'm not doing what you all are doing. So to me, it's like reading a comic book, and I have fun through what you all do. So thank you for inviting me this evening. And I do look forward to presenting some of the Florida, the history of the mango in Florida. That's what I'll be discussing next week. And it's going to be really exciting to share with you all. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Jorge. All right, let's see. Does anyone else have any comments before we wrap up? You can either unmute or chat.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Chuck. Thank you. You guys, this is Chuck. Chuck is our treasurer, and he has done so much work this past year. We had a lot of just funky things that we had to sort out, and he has been such the trooper. And he's had to navigate PayPal and the website, and getting payments from all different places. So thank you, Chuck, for all of your work and making sure that we stay compliant with the taxes and all that good stuff.
Thank you for hosting this wonderful thing. I'm
you've been talking about membership and getting Pomona back on. I was a member in the 1990s. And I only this year have found you again and come back to you. I am involved in New York in the community gardens quite substantially because I helped bring beekeeping back to New York City in the last 12 years. So it's just great. I just want to commend all of you who have been doing this work. And I even visited Sandy at one point when I thought I might have a farm. But it's incredibly wonderful to hear everything that everybody's doing. And thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
May I ask who's speaking?
Oh, yes.
It's Leanne Newton.
Oh, okay.
Sandy, I don't know if you remember me. I came to visit you probably in about 1998 to look at the different crosses and back crosses that you were doing in the chestnuts.
At this point, I no longer claim to remember people.
I would be shocked if you did remember me, but I remember you. Amazing work. Thank you.
I had a question for Buzz, but he seems to have left.
Yeah, he had to jump off.
I'll ask it in general. This is Eric Pina, by the way. I recently found out through one of these other conferences, the Heritage Grocery one, I think, about Cameron Peace and his genetic heritage of apple program. And I guess they have DNA tests now where you can submit an apple, and if they have records of the parent of that apple in their records from like the USDA database of apples, they can actually tell you what one or both of the parents might be for one of your seedling apples. I was going to suggest that Buzz should do that for Cabot Rustic, which is one of his cells, because it'd be interesting to know if that's got any known parents or if its parents are also both random seedlings. But anyways, I recently sent some apple samples to Cameron Peace to pay $110, I think maybe $120 per apple. So it's a little pricey, but for me, he was always burning to know. It was fun for to think I'll find out for seedling apples that I have what the original parents might have been, because they're of an age and were found in a location that makes me think someone, tossed away a regular apple, which was probably a named variety that they've been eating, and that's what the seeds germinated from. So I have high hopes that I'll actually find out one or both parents of these apples when I get the data back.
So Eric, you should write that up in an email to me so I can put it in the Pomona so that people know that you can do this kind of thing.
Yeah, I kind of just assumed everyone knew, but you're right. That's why I was asking if anyone else here has had their apple. Apparently not, I guess.
Yeah, you should write that up.
I can tell you that $120 per sample for DNA testing is very cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is, this why it's a good thing to do now, because he's a professor at Washington State University, and I think this program is through a grant, and so I assume that's helping to underwrite the costs, and it's obviously not going to be available once the grant expires. So it's probably something that if you don't take advantage of it now, is not going to be available in the future.
Cool. Thank you. Anyone else? So Suzanne put a chat. She said, "Hi, everybody. Buzz sent this to me, but I think it might be an answer to your persimmon question." She's not sure, but she said the message was arboretums, including, Longwood Gardens, Willowwood, Arnold, but most of the ones he visits are growers' private collections. Any other thoughts before we wrap up? All right, thank you guys for joining us. I will send out a reminder again next week, and we have Jorge talking and the annual meeting, and then perhaps a little bit of chat, roundtable chat like we did this evening. And then we'll do 2 more nights in January. I'm still working on speakers. If there's anybody that you're interested in, that you want to hear from, either reach out to them and copy me, or email me and I'll see if I can reach them. I have some people in mind, but this is very flexible. And so we want this to kind of be just a relaxed setting and, nothing really hugely formal. So if you've got ideas, people you want to hear from, let me know. Or if you want to reach out and copy me, go for that. But thank you guys for popping on tonight. And I will see many of you next Thursday, and we'll hold our general meeting as well. All right. So thanks, guys. Have a great evening. Stay safe. Clap if you want. You can unmute if you want.
Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome.
Bravo.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks, guys.
Yay.
Thanks. Bye.
Yay.
And this will be recorded, so I'll send out the link for the recording tomorrow.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.
So just a quick question regarding the timing of it. I thought it was 6:30. I must have missed it by time zone. I'm in Central Time Zone.
Oh yeah, it's Eastern.
Yikes. But next week and the rest we'll just pick up at 6:30 Eastern Time, yeah?
Yep. Yeah. And you'll be able to
Okay.
catch what you missed by the recording.
And that's available. How will I get the recording?
I will email you guys out a link to the recording. It's going to be hosted on Indiana University's website.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Chuck, good to see you.